Entrepreneurship is so much driven by kind of what is inside a person.
Aspiring student look at product development or should they look at trends?
If you don't have a product or something of value in a service, then it's hard to build a company around without having these two.
What's your philosophy that drives you?
Shaping the destiny of young people who will become entrepreneurs and change the world in their way. Entrepreneur is not the genius who can create a company, but the entrepreneur is the person with the skill set to bring the resources needed to make his idea come alive.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this session of Guest Cloud Experts Dialogue. We have with us today a stalwart who has been there, done that, and comes with a wealth of corporate entrepreneurship as well as teaching experience on the international stage as well as back home in India. And when I say back home in India, I just discovered that it's not restricted to the premier institutes like IIT Bombay and IIT Gandhinagar and the other IITs. It also encompasses universities in tier 2 cities. So, yes, our guest is Rajan Jaswa, and it's a real privilege to hear from him. Raj is a serial entrepreneur. He's a Thai co-founder. Thai is the Indus Entrepreneurs. So Silicon Valley, when he's one of the earliest founders of the Thai organization. And like I said earlier, he is an educator at IIT as well as other universities in India, and Stanford also, if I'm not wrong. Right, Raj?
Yeah, correct.
So, welcome, Raj, and thank you so much for taking time from your mad schedule for this conversation. And let's explore the world of entrepreneurship from a global lens. Let's dive right into it.
So thank you, Aparna, for that generous introduction. And I'm really gratified to get this opportunity to share, my experiences, knowledge, and, about entrepreneurship in any form, doing it as well as teaching it, because that's my passion. Entrepreneurship is my passion. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. So
Yeah.
that's what actually drives us to passion, and
Mhm.
I would love to have you meet our entire team at a good time whenever you're in India.
More than welcome. I'll be very happy, yeah, to do that.
So Raj, let's dive in, and I'd like to start with your philosophy. What's your philosophy that drives you, whether it is entrepreneurship teaching, whether it is people management, whether it is team management, your own ventures? What is it that drove you?
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty deep question. But, if I think back as to, you know, the things that I've done, like whether it is starting companies or teaching entrepreneurship, etc., I think it's not driven by things like, fame or earning a lot of making a lot of money or, or or something like that. It's actually driven by a sense of, I want to make something that results in either people enjoying a new product that I bring to market or, you know, shaping the destiny of young people who will become, entrepreneurs and, change the world in their way. So, this my I if I look at the drivers of my passion or my desire to on my work, it is really driven by trying to give back something. It's like if you look at, and we'll go through some examples of how this passion kind of ends up revealing itself. So, but I think it's more like hey, we've only got this one life, and how do we make the most of it, and how do we end up having positive benefit and value to everybody that we connect with or touch or relate to, right? So it's like trying to give something back, in a positive way. So an entrepreneurship requires that because, as you know, Dr. Parna, entrepreneurship is very hard work. It's a total commitment, 7 by 24, every minute. There's no vacation. You don't even think of vacation, but it is something that kind of takes over your life, right? So um, you better be somebody who is passionate and feels that it's adding real value to your life, because time is ultimately the one thing that we don't get one extra second in life, so time is, we all want to use our time to give the maximum value to whatever we do, and that is what drives me.
Right. Thank you. So
Yeah.
Raj, you were pivotal in the way the Center for Entrepreneurship was set up, and then it is now a school. You were teaching entrepreneurship, and today you're a professor of practice. You're consulting, you're guiding, you're
Mhm.
advising. You've taught at IIT Gandhinagar. These are all premier institutions, and then you are also teaching in universities with limited resources, limited access. What's
Yes.
difference that you have observed, and how can this gap be bridged?
Well, the thing is that, unlike other professions, you know, entrepreneurship is so much driven um, by kind of what is inside a person, right? It's not, and so it's not a question of whether you can pass JEE or not. It's more a question of how driven are you by something that motivates you, right? Some spark or some lightning has hit you, and now how driven are you to make something happen from that sudden vision or intuition that you had? And I can tell you that I've had excellent entrepreneurs come out of VNIT Nagpur. I've got excellent entrepreneurs that I have met at MIT Pune, at Lucky University. So, entrepreneurship, you'll soon see, is not about how intelligent you are and how knowledgeable you are, but can you bring together the knowledge and the resources that are needed to make the vision or idea that you have come to life, right? So it's about bringing together, like, the companies that I've started, semiconductor company, then a video streaming company, then a enterprise software company with artificial intelligence, um, way before AI's time. And, I was not the expert. I was a good IIT engineer, a good technology wise, but not the expert in any of these three industries. But, given the passion that I had for what we were trying to deliver, whether it was a semiconductor company or a video streaming company or a AI enterprise software company, uh, the vision of what we wanted to deliver is something that I could bring the resources together. I could bring the right engineers, the right managers, the right money, the right customers, the right salespeople, the right marketing people. I could bring together the resources needed to take the idea that was there or the germ of the idea that we had and bring it to life. So, entrepreneur is not the genius who can creates a company, but the entrepreneur is the person with the skill set to bring the resources needed to make his idea come alive, right?
Right.
And take life.
Right. So there was a question which I had planned for later down, but I'll bring it up now. Should a student entrepreneur, an aspiring student, look at product development, or should they look at a global view and look at trends and look at organizational development first?
Well, uh, you know, if you don't have a product or something of value in a service, then it's hard to build a company around without having these two, right? So a product or a service that, changes or makes people happy or makes customers happy or makes their lives easier, that is the starting point. Whatever you do has to make the customer
Right.
delighted, right? The
Right.
customer needs to get some benefit of what you're trying to do, whether it's with a product or a service. So the first thing is to understand the needs of the customer. And if the customer has a need that he's, upset about, or he, says, I wish I had this capability, and you can be alive and alert to recognize that, wow, he's telling me what his need is, and from whatever he's doing right now, it is a need that's not satisfied. If you can get that insight, then you can think of putting together a product or a system or a process or a business model that'll address that particular need. And that's what the entrepreneur does, right? He puts together a concept or a vision of a product or a service or a system or a business model that'll make that customer satisfied or happy, that and then once he's happy, the entrepreneur has to figure out, will the customer pay for this? Is it something that people will pay money for? Is it something that they can deliver for a reasonable cost, so that there is some profit? Because if the business idea does not result in a profitable transaction, it's not going to be easy to scale it up. Then it becomes a charity, right? So
That's
we are not, an entrepreneur does not do charity. He builds companies that, you know, can live off the profits and grow off the profits that are generated from every transaction.
right. Right.
And entrepreneurs need to, for future entrepreneurs or potential entrepreneurs, need to understand this fundamental concept.
Correct. So let me throw up some interesting data from the Guess India
Hmm.
survey.
Yeah.
Mm, Only 14% of students want to start ventures after graduation, according to the survey. But
Hmm.
31% plan to start up after 5 years. Now, looking at your own journey, you graduated from IIT Bombay, moved to the US, worked with a company like Cisco, right?
Intel, GE, many companies. Almost 17 years I was an employee of some company or the other, or a
Right.
manager or something. Yeah.
And then you took the plunge for entrepreneurship.
Then I took the plunge. Yes.
So this data is kind of validates what you did so many years ago, right? You chose to study, work, and then take up entrepreneurship. And here we have 31% of students looking at entrepreneurship in 5 years of professional
I,
experience.
I think that is, in my opinion, that is probably a very good way to understand statistically, the opportunity for entrepreneurship for students. I mean, to be an entrepreneur, you need to have an idea or a spark or something that you become passionate about. And that requires, as I said, an understanding of a customer's or a user's needs. And it also requires conceptualizing some sort of a solution that would help make the customer happy, or delighted. And I would say that you need some industry experience in whatever industry you're into, if you're chemical, electrical, whatever industry, medical, health, whatever. So it almost entrepreneurship opportunities are there in every industry. So there's no such thing as an industry where there's no entrepreneurship opportunity. So any human activity, there are entrepreneurship opportunities. So uh, basically, unless you understand at least at a certain depth a particular field of interest to you, it's hard to really understand what customers are thinking, what they're missing in their lives or in their jobs or in their functional in the things that they do. And it's difficult for them to for anyone to conceptualize a solution for this. So I would say that 5, 10, even 10 years is probably a good amount of hands-on experience um, is it would be nice to have. Now, some areas which are at the cutting edge, like AI, etc. Uh, schools are a hotbed of entrepreneurship. And the reason it's a hotbed of entrepreneurship in areas like AI, etc., or technology driven, or the cutting edge disruptive technology driven industries is because the industry just doesn't get it, doesn't understand. When the internet came along, industry did not understand what internet was. When cloud came along, they didn't understand what cloud or blockchain. So, the cutting edge disruptive technologies are good areas for uh, straight out of college entrepreneurs. But if you want to develop an industrial product or a consumer product or a consumer service in any field, then you need to know. Then you need to have understanding of how that industry works, how that business works.
Right, right.
And I would say that 90% plus are startups in those fields, not in cutting edge disruptive technology fields.
Right, right. So, from your experience, can you give us an idea of how you identified a problem and started one of your companies? What insights did you gain from the industry?
Yeah, so basically three companies, right? So three companies I've been involved with as a founder. So the first one was a semiconductor company, and I had worked in the semiconductor industry for probably 10 or 12 years. And me and my co-founders, three engineers, we found that, nobody was doing a chip development in the way we conceptualized it. The four of us conceptualized it. And we felt that, this would be a breakthrough in price, performance, functionality, cost. We thought it would be a breakthrough. And, so we quit our jobs and we started Opti because, we knew the industry for a dozen years. We knew what the big companies like Intel and VLSI and Texas Instruments and others were not doing. And as a consequence that we felt that we could do, and we quit and then started the company, and that became very successful. In 4 or 5 years we had hundreds of millions of dollars in sales, and could to take the company public and all these things because we knew the industry, we knew the customers, we knew the market, we knew the technology, we knew where the gap was, and we rushed into to the gap. When if I move to Selectica, there my co-founder was a guru in artificial intelligence way before anybody else, and he had a hunch that this AI technology could be deployed on the internet platform, especially with Java coming along in the 1996 timeframe. So
Mm,
it was just a hunch. Nobody knew if the market would accept it, customers would accept it, but he felt that, this thing could become something that people would really benefit from. And, I teamed up with this AI guru, and, my job was to help him take this technology vision that he had and make it into a product that would generate value that people would be confident to buy.
Mm.
Getting people to accept this cutting edge technology was my value add. My value add was how to make something that was palatable,
Right.
you know, to the CIOs of Fortune 500 companies,
Right.
because they were all accustomed to doing things with databases and software and things like that. And we are saying, no, we can use AI in order to do rules and create a rules engine and so on. And then basically it becomes a more maintainable and more reliable system and so on. And it could be deployed on the internet, and salespeople can quickly take orders and things like that. So we had to make the technology into a product that was palatable for the buyer, which was the CIO of these big Fortune 500 companies. And so essentially, I would say that in the second case, it was more a question of great technology, but technology by itself, nobody buys.
Mm.
Only
Right.
when it delivers something valuable of service to them, and them saying, okay, I'm willing to put my business processes on your platform or your technology, and give you a chance, right, to show me how to do that. It's of value. So so basically, like, it's a startup happens in many different ways, and sometimes it's technology driven, which becomes the disruptive force, and sometimes it is just a brilliant new idea that I
Right.
can do this.
Yeah.
And if you move fast enough and quickly enough, you make it happen. Uh, so many ways. And a good way is if you talk to dozens of customers in any industry, you might start seeing a pattern.
Right.
Everybody's saying, I would like to have something like this. And this guy says, yeah, I would like to have a car like Elon Musk saw that, I would like to have a car which, doesn't generate so much pollution. And somebody says, a car that accelerates very fast, and then Elon Musk comes up with his EV car, right? So about 25 years ago. So yeah, many different ways, but it all boils down to finding something where not you, but the customer gets the benefit. It's
Right.
not about you.
Right.
Entrepreneurship is not about you at all.
Correct.
And not about, you're this. It's all about how can you be of service to
Correct.
somebody else, right?
Correct. Correct. Correct.
Yes. Yeah.
So there is this eternal conflict between a question now whether entrepreneurs are born or entrepreneurs are made. Can you demystify this based on your experience with entrepreneurship teaching? So when
Mhm.
you teach entrepreneurship, what kind of outcomes do you expect? Do you expect a shift in mindset? Do you expect venture creation? What kind of outcomes do you look at?
Yeah. So people have two career paths,
Mm.
and traditionally, all our teaching, all our academia was focused at making us employees,
Mm.
which is the idea is the boss's idea. The manager tells you what to do, and you are the grunt who does the work, right? So we are taught to be good employees,
Correct.
who can.
Still is
That's
like
that is what we. It doesn't matter which school, whether it's IIT or whether whatever it.
mm,
Every school teaches us to be a good employee, follow orders, you know. And what happened is that about 30, 40, maybe 50 years ago in Silicon Valley, uh, you know, ordinary engineers started coming up with ideas. And then some investors said, hey, if you've got such a good idea, why don't you start a company? And they started giving stock options to everybody. And what ended up happening is that 20, 30, 40 years later, the top 10 companies in the world are all entrepreneurial startups. Not a single top 10 company in the world is an old company that, that just makes more and more stuff. It's like entrepreneurial companies that disrupt how people live their lives, how they spend their time, how they entertain themselves, how they enjoy food, how they get medical treatment. All entrepreneurial companies. And
Right.
all the richest people in the world are not the Rockefellers anymore. The richest people in the world are people like Elon Musk that nobody had heard of, or Bill Gates, nobody had heard of, or so all suddenly, like, the world changed because of the fact that some engineers came up with bright ideas. They met some people who said, hey, why don't you start a company based on your idea? And now, when the disruptive force of entrepreneurship on the wealth of nations, the wealth of nations is determined by your entrepreneurial aptitude of your workforce. You know,
Right.
how many do you have enough people that can do things in a new way, use the latest technology to create great services, etc., and create great companies which will have great value? I mean, if you just think about it, companies like Nvidia and so on in 3, 4 years have generated market capitalization from 100 billion to $3.5 trillion.
True.
That is equal to India's GDP, guys.
Right.
One company. And there are
Right.
hundreds of such companies, right? So if the wealth of the US or the wealth of China or the wealth of India with all its unicorns, etc., is coming from entrepreneurs all of a sudden, right? So so basically, the whole idea is that when you teach entrepreneurship, can we change the mindset so that people don't have, even when they have their idea, they don't let that idea just die. Everybody, I used to tell in my classes that everybody in his life will get at least 5 good ideas, which are all worth a unicorn.
Mm.
But 99.999% never used to do anything about those ideas. Maybe it's impossible, it's too difficult, I don't think I can do it, where am I going to raise the money, all kinds of negative feelings, right? About, because you're trained to be an employee, you're not trained to, do things that change people's lives, so based on your own drive. And with entrepreneurship teaching, the whole goal is to say that, look, entrepreneurship is not just for people who are born, who are Bill Gates' children, who've got billions of dollars at their hand. Most likely, they won't even become entrepreneurs. It's actually people who don't have any resources are the ones that are going to be the millionaires, billionaires, trillionaires 10 years from now. The people who don't have the money. And the why? Because in entrepreneurship, it's a question of attracting resources. It's not a question of using whatever resources you have. So big companies use resources that they have in order
Correct.
to get a job done, to get a project done, to build a new factory or whatever. But entrepreneurs, when they have the vision of something fantastic, people throw money at them, so the money resource comes. Engineers give up their jobs at big companies like Reliance and so on and quit to join somebody, and on and on and on. It's like somebody was telling me today about a company that was started called in the health industries. And he said that, this entrepreneur came up with the idea, and then he convinced, or when he talked about his idea to the CEO of one of the biggest hospitals in the Bay Area, uh, essentially that guy gave up his job as CEO of the hospital to join him to make this idea into a big company. And what's the name of the company? It's uh, I'll think of it before we finish this interview, but I'll give you the name of the company. But this company has now raised $110 million and is valued at $6 billion. And the company was started in 2023.
Oh, young company.
Yes, young company, exactly. But that's what entrepreneurs do.
Right.
They basically have this amazing idea about how to do something, and essentially it attracts the smartest and the best competent manager in the health services business. It attracts $110 million from different venture capitalists. It attracts engineers. It attracts AI gurus. It attracts everybody, and all of a sudden this company 2 years later is already worth $6 billion. Obviously, they've not gone public, but that's the market capitalization of the funding for this company. So, um, yeah, I'll send you the name of the company, Aparna. So
Right, right. That's magical almost.
it's magical when it happens, right? And it's happening all the time, everywhere in the world right now. It's not a magic that only happens in Silicon Valley and so on. It's happening everywhere. And it is the real wealth of a nation to have, entrepreneurs who are problem solvers that result in a business being formed. So you've got to be if you are a problem solver that works in a corporate company, you're an employee. But if you're a problem solver that results in a new company being formed, you're an entrepreneur. Same problem. But if you
Exactly.
start a company around that problem that you solved, you
Mm.
became an entrepreneur. And then, the sky is the limit in terms of your success, in terms of your fame, in terms of the value, in terms of the money that you'll make.
Exactly. Yes, yes. So, coming back, that was there was so much wealth in just this one answer, Raj. I'm really
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Students, the perspective that students need to bring to the journey of entrepreneurship, and this concept of understanding that you attract resources by identifying a problem that you can solve rather than dip into existing resources. That is so powerful. Yes. Uh,
Yes, that is the essence of being an employee and an entrepreneur. Same problem, all right?
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Coming to entrepreneurship educators, would you focus on the curriculum or the pedagogy for this particular area? Like, obviously, you cannot teach entrepreneurship the way we teach maths, on a board and solve problems. You've got
Yeah,
to go out there and solve problems. So
yeah.
when uh, so there are multiple questions here. One is, should an educator look at the curriculum design only, or should they bring in pedagogy? And what kind of innovation can they bring into their classroom to make students alive to the entire world of entrepreneurship?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. So I think the curriculum has to be there, in my opinion. There is such a thing as learning, right? They have to learn something new. And there's enough new things to learn in entrepreneurship. And the main thing that they are learning is how they can form a company around an idea. So there's a whole bunch of skill sets that are needed to build a company around an idea. You got to know a little bit of finance, got to know a little bit of product development, you got to know about marketing, you got to know about sales, you got to know about negotiating, there's a whole bunch that has to be, is something that students are not going to be aware of and not even have a clue
Correct.
and not even have a personality, of high EQ and things like that, and how to network and how to, convince people about anything. So, in my opinion, curriculum is a must. There has to be an organized way that, we teach them the skills that they will need to build a company around an idea, right? So, how to choose the right idea, how to find out, how to develop a business model canvas, which will help them choose the right idea to put that valuable time behind, and so on. So, all that, there is no option but through a systematic curriculum. Uh, but entrepreneurship, you know, will never be understood if you don't actually do it. The lessons of life come that will help you actually create a company comes by doing, right? So there needs to be some methodology to get students to do things, right? So uh, you know for product development, very important that the student learns to get their hands dirty, to build a proof of concept, so to do experimentation, then to do the marketing, they have to go and do their surveys and customer questioning. And so there needs to be a methodology by which students have to put together uh, hands-on experience of what it'll take to understand at a very deep level within them, the needs of a customer, or how a product would work, or how it would solve a problem, or how to communicate it to the customer when you're selling, how to discuss price, how to convince investors that, you have the ability to build this great company. So unless you have the hands-on experience that supplement and reinforce the curriculum that they're being taught, it'll just be an academic exercise.
Right.
And these days with AI tools like ChatGPT, they can write a business plan, they can write a marketing plan, they can write a sales plan, they can write everything in seconds, right? But that's not going to make you an entrepreneur.
They can
What will
build a
make you an
they
they
can
will?
they can build a satellite to the moon using ChatGPT.
Yeah, exactly. There's so much they can do, but that won't create a business. It won't create a company. To
True.
create a company, you need to go at least 10 levels deeper in every element of, or every facet of your company.
Right.
You got to really understand, how do I reach this customer base? Who's my market for my customer, for my product? What will stimulate them to actually buy it? So in every area, you need to develop your intuitive understanding, which ChatGPT will never get because it's an AI tool. So that intuitive understanding of your technology, of your product, of your technology, of your product, of your marketing, of your market, of your sales capability, etc. All that comes, that intuitive understanding only comes through hands-on experience. So we've got to mesh the two.
Right.
Yeah.
So when we look at entrepreneurship programs in an academic setting, you know,
Mm-hmm.
um, it becomes challenging for students to actually take up this field work or and get into the world outside for customer discovery or problem identification. So how can this become more meaningful? How a more meaningful experience for students?
Yeah, so that's a problem that I've struggled with, and we've struggled it with at IIT for years and years, and other universities like Stanford University, the Stanford Technology Venture Program, with whom we are very well coupled and who worked with us very closely, they also struggle with you know uh, helping students get this knowledge. And there's a lot of different approaches that have been put to work, and now there's enough success paths to providing this deep understanding. So one of the things that we did is to go ahead and have the university or the college actually focus on bringing together the industry players to interact with the students. So if you remember, at IIT we have this the biolab, right? The biolab, and in the biolab they have access to, like, 50 or 100 doctors, cardiologists, hematologists, rhinologists, this every kind of doctor, nurse, hospital, everybody is hard and connected with this lab or this center for biomedical entrepreneurship.
Better.
And BETIC, right? And since they're connected, the students who are interested in doing a biomedical startup, the hard work of doing the introductions and providing access to people who understand a problem or understand a need, that access is provided. So, it would be very hard for somebody a student to have access to a world class cardiologist or a world class, and somebody says, I think there's some new material that has been discovered which can make the next generation of stents. Now, if they cannot get access to a cardiologist and a cardiac surgeon, how are they going to develop this stent, right? Even though there is some new material, there is some new technology, there is some new whatever science that this student has figured out, or had a vision about, or whatever. So in my opinion, the university has to do a fair amount of work to decide that we are going to focus our entrepreneurial industry experience for the students who want to do entrepreneurial startups in that particular area. We are going to do the work of getting them to connect with the ecosystem of that industry, right? If you remember, we did the rural project
Right. Right.
at with IIT Bombay, and we took all our students and connected them with the farmers and villagers and the panchayats and the everybody in this Adivasi village,
Right.
near Gujarat, and the students would have never connected with these farmers, but they came up with 20 brilliant startup ideas, right?
Absolutely. I remember that.
But if IIT, through its alumni organization Wheels, had not done the introduction and the logistics to make that connection happen. So my viewpoint is that none of this is very impossible thing to do or very expensive. It's more a question of recognizing that students are not going to have a good set of connections into the industry ecosystem where they are trying to do it. Even so, they might be brilliant electrical engineers, but if they don't have access to the Larsen Toubro leadership and managers and GE and so on, how are they going to come up with any breakthrough products and services for that electrical industry? And the same thing with rural or healthcare or whatever. So I
Absolutely.
think the university has to, and the
Facilitate.
university has the ability to also do it,
Right,
but
right.
to open up or access to a particular ecosystem.
So, what is the gap that you find in the incubation and institutional academic entrepreneurship education systems? There are two ecosystems already present in many universities. They have incubators, they have entrepreneurship teachers, they have an e-cell, and yet there are some gaps, right?
Yeah, so I would say that because I'm also familiar with all the incubators in the US, right? And I've seen examples of things like Alchemist Accelerator, you know, um, and other incubators in Silicon Valley, and I've seen obviously incubators like Sign and IIT Bombay, etc., right, and so on. And I would say that the main uh, the main difference that I see between the ones in Silicon Valley and the ones in India is that the ones in Silicon Valley provide connection with industry experts.
Hmm.
So besides providing, the workbench and the access to internet or whatever it is, or cloud or whatever, uh, and a little bit of money, etc., they provide access to people who are leaders in the industry that the entrepreneur is that they are supporting. So if somebody is, you know, interested in the, let's take an example, some crypto industry or whatever, because he's got some new crypto algorithms or whatever, and he gets accepted by Alchemist Accelerator or one of these Silicon Valley then the incubation center will reach out to the top, kind of business leaders, finance leaders, marketing and sales people in the crypto industry, which might be banking, insurance, whatever, and connect them with this uh, crypto entrepreneur. And and then when they connect, they basically, there's a uh, there's a contract where the crypto entrepreneur has to give 0.1% or 0.5% of his stock to these industry leaders, and so both sides you created a benefit for the industry expert helping this brilliant crypto researcher, and the crypto researcher having access to this talent in areas that they obviously don't have. So basically, basically, I would say that it's the industry connection with people in leadership positions that these incubators provide for their budding entrepreneurs. And
Right.
I don't see that kind of activist approach to making connections. And I think, I don't know why, but as yet, I haven't seen that level of activist networking or connections that I start that incubator does in order to help the future entrepreneur, right? And
Right.
and and I think the missing gap among everything else.
Okay. Right. That is valuable. That
Yeah.
is so apt. The network and the appropriate network that an entrepreneur needs for building his or her unique concept. Absolutely. And
Yes.
we cannot predict what a young entrepreneur would want, and we need to be ready to be able to facilitate those connections for them.
Facilitating those connections and doing it in an activist way.
True, true. Actively.
Don't, yeah, somebody has to actively make the phone call.
Correct.
Some person who's influential, reputable, like the director of IIT calling, somebody at the CEO of Larsen and Toubro and saying, I would like your director of engineering in this high-powered area to talk to my, you know,
Correct.
that level of desire to help the entrepreneur succeed
Right.
needs to be there in an organization, in a university.
Absolutely. You're that is you hit the nail on the head with that.
Yeah.
Let's look at the student point of view. So, according to the guest data, we see that 58% of students have mentioned that the main hiccup, the main factor influencing their decision to start up is identified as family pressure. How can students navigate through this and experiment with startups as a student?
Well, I think, you know, in India, at least in India that I know of, parents sacrifice everything for their students' education, all their life savings, etc. People invest in their students' education, whether at IIT or medical school or anywhere else, right? I mean, education in India still costs money, and for 4 5 years, they're basically student is spending their parents' hard-earned saved money, right? So, I can understand why parents and family would love their children to take a conservative next step forward because entrepreneurship is a high risk, high reward activity.
Right.
And the failure rate of entrepreneurs is significant. And uh, by definition, it's never going to go down. That failure rate will stay where it is. And the question is, but is, um, families are not going to be happy with their student essentially graduating and then turning down an Infosys offer for 50 lakh rupees a year. They're just not going to be happy. And basically, you know, try to start a company and need more angel funding from their parents, etc. So, it's a realistic problem. There's no two ways around it. And by the way, that's true in Silicon Valley also. It's like even Silicon Valley parents are not if they've spent $250,000 or $500,000 to put their students through Stanford or Harvard or Princeton or whatever, want them to get a good job at the end of it and not
Right.
become, a poor entrepreneur. Uh, but there's a lot more safety nets
Mm.
in the West compared to a developing economy like India. So I would say that I would say that as a professor of entrepreneurship, we should be happy if maybe just I would say 1% of our students, 1 out of 100 students actually decides to start a company right off the bat. Um, if you're lucky, maybe two will start. but if two start, it's pretty good because we have planted the seed, and it's just a matter of time when the students are reasonably secure financially, know something about the industry, have network into the team that is going to be needed to make the idea happen, and be credible and reputable with investors like venture capitalists and angels, etc. That their company has a fair shot at succeeding. So and so I'm not basically somebody who would push students to start companies right out of school. My attitude is, if something comes along and it's a brilliant idea and it starts attracting resources, great.
Correct.
Do start your company because you can feel the magnetic pull that your idea has got, and then you go for it. But if not, you know um, you've learned everything about entrepreneurship, you know how to do it, you've got all the skills, and now uh, you know understand an industry really well, become financially reasonably stable financially, etc., so that you have a little bit of runway on your own
Right.
to build your company. You can go without a paycheck for a year or so, and run and create something of value before you know to create a company, successful company, which is what I did. It took me 17 years before I could pull together the courage to jump and start my first company. Yeah.
Correct. In fact, Raj, while you were speaking, I was thinking this, whatever you're saying, there are so many gems out there. I wish every entrepreneur, every student was listening into this today. Um, it's like a toolkit for entrepreneurs, if I may put it that way. You actually
Well, I've experienced it, so
exactly
and yeah, that's the main thing.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so if I had to ask you for one resource hack, one mindset shift, and one personal failure story to close this interview, I think there will be so much more. And like I said earlier, we will come back for some more
Yeah.
insights from your
Sure.
experience. So,
Yeah.
one
So
mindset shift that you would advise students who face fear of starting up, like you said earlier, or family pressure? Let's start with that.
yeah. So my attitude is that um, entrepreneurs need to develop eyes to understand and be empathetic of what others are facing. That's the first skill of an entrepreneur, that they have empathetic eyes. That's what I say. You you can see yourself in the shoes of of a housewife who's struggling with something or the other, or a student who's struggling with something, or a farmer who's struggling with something. You have got to have empathetic eyes. It can't be somebody who just brushes away other people's needs, expectations, desires. You got to be able to put yourself in their shoes, right? So and really get it. So empathetic eyes is what I call, you know um, is something that an entrepreneur needs to develop, which in my opinion we just don't teach. Our
Exactly.
academia does not teach us to be empathetic about anything in life. You can't, you're only looking at everything from your own eyes, and that's a very selfish way. And a selfish person can never be an entrepreneur, just to be point blank about that thing. So the first thing is that an entrepreneur needs to have the mindset of wanting to be empathetic, right? Caring, and so on. So that is the mindset shift from me oriented to you oriented kind of mindset, empathetic, right?
Exactly.
And then eyes to understand, oh, if this person has a problem, then so many people should have a problem. So many people will buy the product. So much money can be made. So many people can be hired. So eyes is what is the vision, right? It's the vision that empathy and understanding that empathy gave will give you a vision of what is possible for your company, right? And so that is, in my opinion, the mindset change for you know any college going student that we need. That's number one. So
Right.
what is the next question?
One resource hack for student entrepreneurs, or any entrepreneur for that matter, because resource
So
is not easy.
so my as I said, to succeed as an entrepreneur, you got to be somebody who attracts resources. You know, I said that is how an entrepreneur basically, makes brings his company to life, right? Because he attracts resources, right? So so my viewpoint is that, uh, how do you make yourself attractive? Somebody that attracts resources. You
Right.
know, what is it that'll make you not somebody who repels resources but attracts resources, right? A lot of VCs will run from 90% of the entrepreneurs that go to meet them, but then they meet this one entrepreneur and all the VCs want to throw money at him.
Right.
What
Right.
is it? How do
Right.
you go from being somebody who repels
Mm.
VCs to somebody who attracts VCs, right?
Right. Right.
How Same thing with how do you attract customers versus repelling customers? The guy says, "I'm so busy. Don't try to sell me another toothbrush or toothpaste or whatever." And then Baba Ramdev comes along, and all of a sudden, everybody wants his Ayurvedic toothpaste, right? so, so the point is that you know how do we go ahead and change a personality from being a repeller to somebody who attracts? And to me, people who attract are people who are not all about themselves. Okay?
So it comes
People
back
who,
to that point of empathy.
it comes back to empathy and then developing the personality
Correct. Correct.
that you are not about yourself, right? It's like somebody who's, goes ahead and does a major project within at the campus or whatever, runs cell or something like that. These are all developing the personality of attracting uh, resources and attracting and being of interest to people rather than somebody who just pushes away the very people that they're going to need if they're ever going to succeed, right? So in my opinion, it is university is a great place to learn the skills that will make you an attractive human being, right? So
Right.
that is what students need to, if they learn anything in universities, they got to learn how to be attractive to all the resources they're going to need who are going to help them succeed in life, right?
Correct.
So that is what and that means good communication skills, uh, basically being disciplined, being on time, following up with with people when you've made any commitments, keeping your commitments. There's a whole bunch of personality traits that need to be developed if you're going to become a person who attracts resources versus somebody who repels resources, right?
Right, right.
Yeah, like who wants to work with somebody that comes late to a meeting or comes unprepared to a meeting or who comes, uh, where, just doesn't, have everything done in a nice, proper way, with a nice little, well digested, how to put together a package of collateral properly and so on. So basically, you have to develop the skills to understand and traits and personality traits that'll make you attractive to the resources that you want. Because if you have these traits, you know you, things will just start happening for you, and that's
Right,
what we want.
right, right.
Yeah.
One story of failure from where you took lessons, and what how would you advise an entrepreneur to separate their failure, the failure of a startup from personal failure?
Yeah. So basically, like, an entrepreneur's life is all about failures. Every day, there are failures. You lost this sales opportunity. Your product did not work as well. You lost this engineer that you wanted, that decided not to join your company. I mean, an entrepreneur faces umpteen failures every day. Forget one failure. And, you know, an entrepreneur that loses their optimism is the real failure.
Yes.
The person that is not so confident and positive and optimistic and, you know gives in to, the daily setbacks is the biggest failure. And to me, that is probably the number one most important thing that entrepreneur needs to learn about failure, which is every failure is actually just a step of learning. It's a learning step. It's not anything about you being bad or whatever, you being a disappointment. It's all about, hey, that's an important lesson that I learned today about, this person did not join my company, but the next person that I interview, I'll be able to convince him to join my company. Or this customer didn't buy my product. This is why he decided not to buy my product. Next time I will make him buy it this way. Or, this VC did not invest my money. I'm going to have to change my messaging or my product positioning or my, or the way I've written my deck or, how I pitch it's a learning opportunity. So basically, there's no such thing as failure. It's actually more a question of, you know, how many, how can you stay in learning mode through the journey of entrepreneurship?
Right.
That's what it's all about.
So the magic word here is next. Like,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
what next? So all right, this didn't work. What next? What next?
What's next? And, what do I need to do to self improvement?
Correct.
Right?
Interesting.
Yeah, you have to improve. You have to make it better. You can't just use the same idea. It failed. You have to keep changing your PPT deck
Mm.
with every VC. You got to change the way you answer questions. You got to change the way you approach the VC. You have to keep evolving and becoming, you know, better and better at every task that has to be done till you become unbeatable.
Right.
You
And
know, we
all
see no choice but to invest in your company. Yeah,
and all the time you keep your ear to the market demand, market needs, customer
exactly.
expectations.
Totally, totally. Yeah, you have
Absolutely.
to.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So just one last question, because you were talking about VCs attracting funds versus repelling VCs. One of the
Mhm.
talks that came up.
Yeah.
Shark Tank and programs like this have really grown in popularity. And today, students think that success is equal to fundraising through a VC. Can
Sure.
you, yes, just if you could throw,
Well, I would say that, less than 0.1% of entrepreneurs successfully get VC funding. It's minuscule. It's virtually 99% of entrepreneurs essentially bootstrap, angel fund, organically fund, customer funds. That is the way 99% of startups happen. And VCs come in much later when there is much more, what we used to call, product market fit. Once the product market fit happens, then, professional money, VCs, etc., will see the light of your vision and, want to invest in your company, right? But there needs to be enough validation of the product market fit, which, is hard work that has to be done, and it has to be funded one way or the other through bootstrapping, angel funding, customer funding, etc. Right? So, uh, my viewpoint is that you know there's a time for VC funding, and the VC funding should be attempted only after you have a good, validatable product market fit. If till you have that, you're just wasting your time, in my opinion, because the chance of getting VC funding is so low that that's not where it's worth time spending your time. Spend your time on the product market fit.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So, yes. And I want to close this interview with one last question.
Hmm.
What's one bold prediction that you would make about India's startup ecosystem by 2030, particularly student startup ecosystem?
Well, I think, you know, um, see, the world is moving to a very uh, knowledge driven, or knowledge driven and AI driven kind of future. The world is changing very rapidly, and all our students are going to live in a world that is so different than what we thought, that we lived through a very tumultuous 40, 50 years after graduating. But our students are going to have even a much more tumultuous life, because it's going to be a world of robots, humanoids, drones, AI, and all kinds of intelligent agents, and uh, uh, basically where everything around you is doing and delivering things that that disrupt anything, any concept of a steady job that you could have for 40 years. That concept itself is now becoming totally obsolete, that I can be a CA for 40 years, or I can be a doctor for 40 years, or I can be a nurse for 40 years, because you thought you could be a nurse for 40 years, but then suddenly, you know all the things that you were doing is done by a humanoid robot who'll do it 24 hours a day for one tenth the amount of money, without making a single mistake, and so on. And the same thing for doctors, same thing for CAs, etc. Right? So the thing is that no industry is safe.
Mm.
But, you know, India, with its focus on education being so fundamental to the futures of our students, etc., uh, these educated students from India are the ones who are going to actually make this future that is so scary for everybody happen. So that is, so basically, in my opinion, India has to do whatever's necessary in order to see this vision where India is the change agent
Right.
for the new world that is going to emerge, whether we want it or not.
Right.
So we have to become the people that embrace the future, the new world that is going to be on us within 5, 10, 15 years, and and be the drivers. And our education system, our mindset of our students, everything that we talked of today in terms of being empathetic eyes, in terms of driven to help rather than to want to get something, it's like all these things are going to be fundamental traits of what Indians are capable of in terms of helping change and make the future happen.
Absolutely. In fact, a Swedish entrepreneur was saying that India would lead the change for the world into the next.
Yeah, because India is just got the intelligence here and the awareness as to, and our leadership from Prime Minister Modi down is there to go ahead and make this vision of India driving the future of the world
Right.
to happen. Yeah.
Wonderful. So that's
Okay.
such a positive note for students to know that they are going to be driving the change. And we look at
Ab-
the world wanting to come to India and lining up for Indian visas and passports. Awesome.
okay. Wonderful, Aparna, Dr. Aparna. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Raj. This was a wealth of learning for educators as well as students, and I'm really looking forward to some more work on this. And I look forward to being in touch with you for this. Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you for this opportunity. I think brought a lot of important ideas together, right? And that's what this conversation is all about.
Correct.
It's what is the brilliance is in the dialectic between our conversation rather
Correct.
than your knowledge or my knowledge independently, right?
Exactly, exactly. And I think we should work on that toolkit from you.
Okay, so let's talk about it sometime.
Absolutely,
Great.
absolutely.
Okay.